Morgue Mystery. True Scary Stories. Story number 1. The Silent Autopsy Room. Late one stormy night, a forensic pathologist was working alone in the morgue. As she was about to perform an autopsy, she heard faint whispers coming from one of the bodies on the table. She approached it cautiously, but the corpse remained still. Shrugging it off as her imagination, she continued her work. However, as she made the first incision, the body suddenly sat up and whispered, "You shouldn't have opened me." She screamed and ran, never returning to the morgue. Story number 2. The Haunted Toe Tag. A mortician had a peculiar habit of writing cryptic messages on the toe tags of the deceased. One day, while preparing a body for burial, he found a toe tag that he couldn't recall writing. It read, "He's not dead." Brushing it off as a prank, he proceeded with embalming. That night, he was awakened by the sound of scratching from inside the casket. Terrified, he realized he had buried someone alive by mistake. Story number 3. The morgue's unseen guest. A night janitor at a morgue always heard strange noises during his shifts, but he attributed them to the old building's creaks. One night, he spotted a shadowy figure in the corner of the autopsy room. As he approached, the figure whispered, "I've been waiting for you." The janitor fled, quitting his job the next day. The morgue's night shift position remained vacant, as no one dared to work there alone again. Story number 4. The Cadaver's Grudge. A renowned forensic scientist was known for her meticulous work. One day, she received an unidentified body from a crime scene. As she began the autopsy, she noticed a peculiar symbol carved into the corpse's chest. Ignoring it, she continued her examination. That night, she heard eerie whispers in her dreams, and the symbol haunted her. The next morning, she returned to the morgue to find the same symbol carved into her own chest, with a message, "You should have left me in peace." Story number 5. The Persistent Pulse. A newly hired morgue assistant was assigned to take vital signs of the deceased before autopsies. One night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she heard a faint heartbeat from one of the bodies. She checked repeatedly, but all readings showed no signs of life. Still, the eerie sensation persisted. The next morning, she discovered the corpse had vanished, and her heart rate monitor displayed a steady pulse with the message, "You're not alone." Story number 6. The Phantom Photographer. A forensic photographer working late in the morgue captured unusual images on film. Ghostly figures appeared beside the deceased, always in the background. As the photos developed, the figures grew clearer, and their faces contorted in agony. Frightened, the photographer showed the pictures to a colleague, who recognized one of the figures as a recently deceased relative. The morgue had become a gathering place for lost souls, trapped between worlds. Story number 7. The Cursed Cadaver. In a remote town, a morgue held the body of a notorious serial killer. Legend had it that anyone who touched the killer's body would be cursed. One curious mortician decided to examine the body alone one night. As he touched it, he felt a surge of cold and dread. From that day forward, he was haunted by the killer's vengeful spirit, always lurking in the shadows, whispering sinister thoughts in his ear. Story number 8. The Disappearing Autopsy Table. A seasoned pathologist was conducting an autopsy when suddenly, the body on the table vanished into thin air. Startled, he called for help, but nobody believed him. Over the next few weeks, strange things started happening. Bodies would appear on the table without explanation, and the room's temperature would drop dramatically. The pathologist soon realized that the morgue itself had a malevolent presence. Story number 9. The Voice from the Freezer. A night shift worker in a morgue was organizing the storage freezers when he heard a faint, desperate voice coming from one of them. He cautiously opened the freezer and found a corpse inside, seemingly alive, whispering, "Help me." As he reached out to investigate further, the body's icy hand grabbed his wrist with an unnatural strength, pulling him inside. The freezer door slammed shut, and he was never seen again. Story number 10. The Cold Corpse's Clutch. A mortician in an old, eerie morgue was preparing a body for burial. As he worked, he felt a bone-chilling coldness permeate the room. Suddenly, the corpse's eyes snapped open, and its frigid hand shot out, grabbing the mortician's wrist. It whispered, "I need your warmth." The mortician tried to break free, but the corpse's grip grew stronger, draining his life force until he, too, became one of the cold and lifeless. Story number 11. The Relentless Resurrection. In a small town, a morgue attendant discovered a peculiar pattern. Bodies that had been autopsied and prepared for burial mysteriously reappeared on the autopsy table every few nights. Each time, the bodies were slightly less decayed. Terrified, the attendant realized the corpses were coming back to life, and their relentless resurrection was inching closer to a horrifying outcome. Story number 12. The Whispers in the Morgue Walls. A night security guard patrolling the morgue heard faint whispers coming from the walls. As he investigated, he discovered hidden compartments filled with old, dusty journals. These journals contained the dark secrets and confessions of past morgue workers who had been driven to madness by their experiences. As he read the chilling tales, he realized that the morgue itself was the source of the malevolent presence, and it hungered for new souls. Story number 13. The Phantom Autopsy. A skilled pathologist was known for his meticulous autopsies. One night, as he performed an autopsy on a mysterious corpse, he was startled when the body's chest suddenly opened, revealing a beating heart. It whispered, "I can't rest until you solve my murder." The pathologist became obsessed with uncovering the truth, leading him down a dark and terrifying path that ultimately consumed him. Story number 14. The Living Morgue Drawer. In a morgue known for its impeccable organization, a night attendant heard strange noises coming from one of the body storage drawers. When he opened it, he found a living person, cold and terrified, tucked among the deceased. The person claimed to have been mistakenly pronounced dead and had been trapped in the drawer for hours. But as the night wore on, the lines between the living and the dead began to blur in horrifying ways. Story number 15. The Cursed Morgue Mirror. In a morgue that had been in operation for generations, there was an old mirror used by staff to prepare bodies. It was said that the mirror held a curse. Those who looked into it would see the reflection of a vengeful spirit lurking behind them. One night, a curious mortician gazed into the mirror and saw the ghostly figure of a long-forgotten corpse. The spirit whispered, "You can't escape my gaze," and from that moment on, the mortician was haunted by the relentless specter. Story number 16. The Corpse's Cryptic Message. A forensic scientist was performing an autopsy on a murder victim. To everyone's astonishment, the victim's body was covered in strange symbols. As the scientist dissected the body, the symbols began to bleed dark, inky fluid. The victim's mouth suddenly opened, and a guttural voice spoke a cryptic message about the identity of the killer. The scientist followed the clues, leading to a horrifying revelation that shook the entire town. Story number 17. The Midnight Morgue Ritual. A group of rebellious teenagers decided to break into an abandoned morgue on a dare. They entered the dark and eerie building at midnight and began performing a séance. As they summoned spirits, the temperature dropped dramatically, and a chilling wind filled the room. Suddenly, the corpses in the morgue came to life, reaching out for the intruders. The teenagers fled in terror. Forever scarred by the night, they awakened the morgue's malevolent occupants. Story number 18. The Malevolent Morgue Bell. In an old, abandoned morgue, there was an ancient bell that was rumored to ring on its own when death was near. A daring paranormal investigator decided to spend the night there. As he lay in wait, the bell began to toll ominously. Terrified, he fled the morgue, but the sound of the bell continued to haunt him, growing louder and louder until it drove him to madness. Story number 19. The Whispers of the Unclaimed Bodies. In a morgue with a history of unclaimed bodies, the deceased seemed to communicate with each other. They whispered secrets from their past lives, revealing dark and haunting stories of betrayal and tragedy. The night shift staff, unable to escape the constant eerie murmurings, slowly descended into madness, tormented by the voices of the unclaimed souls. Story number 20. The Haunted Autopsy Tools. A forensic pathologist began experiencing strange phenomena in the morgue. Autopsy tools would move on their own, and disembodied hands would disrupt the procedures. One night, as he examined a particularly gruesome murder victim, the body's voice emanated from the severed head, saying, "Find my killer." The pathologist, determined to solve the case, embarked on a horrifying journey into the world of the supernatural. Story number 21. The Reanimated Morgue Attendant. A morgue attendant obsessed with the idea of bringing the dead back to life conducted secret experiments on the corpses. One night, he succeeded in reanimating a body, but the result was not what he expected. The revived corpse was a vessel for something malevolent, and it began to terrorize the morgue, seeking to claim the souls of the living. Story number 22. The Vengeful Toe Tags. In a morgue known for its strict protocols, toe tags were used to identify the deceased. However, a series of mysterious deaths occurred when certain bodies were tagged with a specific number sequence. The pattern seemed coincidental until it was revealed that those numbers corresponded to the birth dates of the morgue staff. The toe tags were exacting a deadly revenge for past misdeeds. Story number 23. The Mirror of the Deceased. A mortuary had an antique mirror that was rumored to reveal the spirits of the dead. One night, a grieving family insisted on seeing their departed loved one's reflection. As they gazed into the mirror, they saw not only the deceased but also a host of tormented souls pleading for release. The mirror's surface shattered, setting the spirits free to haunt the living. Story number 24. The Unfinished Autopsy. An experienced pathologist was performing an autopsy when he suddenly fell unconscious. When he awoke, he found himself on the autopsy table with his own body being dissected by his own hands. Terrified and unable to control his actions, he continued the autopsy on himself until there was nothing left but an empty shell. Story number 25. The Morgue's Dark Portal. In a morgue located in an ancient building, a hidden chamber was discovered beneath the autopsy table. Inside, an eerie portal to the afterlife was revealed. Those who ventured too close were pulled into the portal and forced to confront the spirits of the deceased. Some returned with their minds forever altered, while others were never seen again. The end.